Superior Court of Washington State is now in session. The Honorable Spankus presiding.
Please be seated. This is a criminal case brought by the state of Washington, charging the defendant, Pat Morton, with theft in the first degree. The state claims that Pat Morton, with the intent to deprive the owner, Mountaintop High School, of its property, stole an Apple computer valued at $2,200 from the school. Pat Morton admits that he took the computer but denies that he had the intent to commit theft. Pat claims that he believed that he had permission to take the computer. It will be your duty to decide whether or not Pat Morton is guilty of the crime of theft in the first degree. It is important that you decide the case based on what the evidence shows. It will be wrong to decide the case because you like some lawyers or some witnesses. You must decide what really happened. It is my duty as the judge to instruct you on the law in this case. The law states that people are guilty of theft in the first degree when they wrongly obtain unauthorized control over the property of another with intent to deprive the owner of that property, and the value of the property is more than $1,500. The government's lawyers must convince you that Pat Morton is guilty of theft in the first degree. If they fail to convince you that Pat Morton is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, then Pat Morton will go free. At the end of this case, you will be asked to decide whether or not Pat Morton is guilty of this theft in the first degree. We now will begin the case. The attorneys for the government, who are called prosecuting attorneys, will go first.
Your Honor, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Ms. Jackson, and I represent the state of Washington in this case. This is a clear case of theft. The defendant, Pat Morton, really wanted to go on his 9th grade class trip to Washington, D.C. However, Pat's mother told Pat that they did not have the money and that Pat would not be able to go. The evidence will show that Pat developed a plan to get the money by taking, then stealing, one of the 5 computers from Mountaintop High School. Computer teacher Dana Corporal will tell you about the purchase of the 5 new Apple computers in July of last year. Each one cost $2,200. Dana will also tell you that in the second week of school, on September 15th, that a student had a epileptic fit during the last period of the day. The teacher went to the clinic with the student and was not able to return to the school until 7:30 that night to lock up the computer. As the teacher arrived at the school, the teacher saw 3 young people approximately at 8 p.m., including the defendant, Pat Morton, at the front of the school. Pat Morton was holding on one end of the new computer and was leaving the school. The teacher took the defendant with the other 2 young men to the office and called the police. They were each arrested and charged with theft in the first degree. One of the other young people, Jamie Mendina, will testify that over a month before the theft, Pat had admitted to plan to steal one of the new computers to get the money for the school trip. At the end of the trial today, I am sure that you will find the defendant, Pat Morton, guilty of theft in the first degree.
Your Honor, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not as simple as the prosecuting attorney has tried to make you believe. Instead, this is a case of younger siblings looking up to an older sibling and believing in what the older sibling says. Pat Morton is a younger sibling of J.D. Morton, who was also there on the night of September 15th. Pat attended Village Secondary School and is a straight A student. Pat always looked up to the older sibling, J.D. Morton. It was J.D.'s idea to steal the computer to get money for Pat's class trip. J.D. was a senior at Mountaintop High School and had taken the computer class from Dana Cooper the year before. J.D. will testify that on September 15th, the night Jamie and J.D. planned to steal the computer, that Pat showed up unexpectedly. J.D. could not get Pat to leave, so J.D. told Pat that they had permission from the school to borrow one of the computers for the weekend. J.D. will testify that Pat had no knowledge of how computers are used at the school and that no computers are ever loaned out. Also, the prosecuting attorneys are not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Pat Morton intended to steal the computer. This they simply cannot do because Pat did not have the intent to steal the computer. I will ask you to return the verdict of not guilty once you have heard all the evidence.
Is the prosecution ready to present its case?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to call my first witness.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth?
I do. Please state your name for the court and spell it.
It's Dana Capra, C-A-P-R-N.
What do you do for a living?
I am a computer teacher at Mountaintop High School.
How long have you been a teacher there?
I've taught there for 5 years.
Can you describe the computer lab at the school?
Up until this past summer, we had about 15 computers. They were pretty out of date. Last summer, the school gave us money to buy an additional 5 computers, the newest Apple computers costing $2,200. I ordered these new 5 computers and they arrived on August 12th of last year.
What is the policy of Mountaintop High School on computers?
The computers are never loaned out to anyone for any reason.
Do you know the defendant Pat Morton?
No, up until the night of September 15th when I found the delinquent stealing my computers, I've never seen him before.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain. Dana Capra, please do not use terms like delinquent in referring to the defendant.
Please tell the court what happened on September 15th of last year.
I was conducting my afternoon study period when a young woman student started having an epileptic seizure. There was no medical assistance available at the school, so I made arrangements to take her to the clinic. I put one of the most responsible students in charge of the class and left. It took until 7:30 that night at the clinic to get her all settled.
Objection, Your Honor. Narration.
Sustain. Counsel, please ask another question.
What happened next?
I headed back to the school so that I could lock up the computer room as I normally do at the end of the school day.
What did you find when you returned to the school?
Well, as I walked up to the computer room, I saw some figures in front of the school. It was about 8 o'clock and it was dark, so I shouted out, "Who's there?" A boy who I know now to be a girl who I know now to be Pat Morton said, "It's just us coming to borrow the computer." I saw that Pat Morton was holding one of the ends of our new brand Apple computers, and Jamie Medina, a junior in my class at Mountaintop, was holding the other end.
What happened next?
I saw the third person at the door at the computer room. He must have been trying to lock the door. I realized that J.D. Morton, who took the computer class the year before. While I ordered all 3 of them to the office, I called the police while waiting for the police to show up. I noticed Pat Morton was looking pretty scared and was crying.
What happened next?
During the 45 minutes it took the police to get there, I heard the 2 siblings talking. It turned into an argument. Pat said, you told me that the teacher said you could come have the computer for the weekend. Then JD said, "Shut up, Pat. You were in this from the beginning. You knew that this was trip money. You were the one who told Mom not to worry about the money."
No further questions, Your Honor.
Defense counsel, would you like to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Dana Corporal, isn't it true that when you first seen Pat Morton, that she said, "Oh, it's just us coming to borrow the computer"?
Well, yes.
Isn't it also true that at the time that you gave the written statement, you indicated that Pat Morton seemed quite open and natural about having the computer?
Yes, but Pat Morton must really be really crafty.
A yes or no answer is sufficient. No further questions.
Dana Capra, you may step down. Does the prosecution have any additional witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Jamie Medina to the stand.
Jamie Medina, please come forward and be sworn.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm that you will tell the truth?
Yes.
Jamie, please tell the court your name.
Jamie Medina, please.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a junior at Mountaintop High School.
How old are you?
I'm 17 years old.
Do you know the defendant, Pat Morton?
Yes.
How do you know Pat Morton?
I'm a good friend of Pat's older sibling, J.D. Morton. We used to play basketball together after school. The only thing that I never liked about being with J.D. was that his little sibling, Pat, used to follow J.D. everywhere. Pat annoyed me by trying to act like a big shot when he was only a little kid.
Please tell the court about what happened on August 14th of last year.
I was talking to JD and Pat was there as usual, and I told JD about the new Apple computer coming to the school. I was going to take the computer class in my junior year and would get a chance to use the new computers. I told them that the new computer cost $2,200 each.
How was Pat reacting to this information?
Pat was unusually quiet, and then Pat said, maybe that's how I can get my trip money.
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Prosecution.
Your Honor, this statement is an exception to the hearsay rule, an admission against interest, and should be allowed.
Objection overruled. The witness may answer the question.
So, what did Pat Morton say?
Pat said maybe that's how I can get my trip money.
Jamie, what happened on September 11th of last year?
JD said that he had a plan for making some easy money and talked me into agreeing to steal one of the new computers.
Did JD explain this plan?
Yes.
What was the plan?
Since I was in the computer class, I was supposed to look around the room and see how we could steal one of the new computers.
And was Pat Morton present for this discussion on September 11th?
Yes, Pat was.
What happened on September 15th of last year?
Well, this girl in class goes into a fit during last period, and the computer teachers left to take her to the clinic. I thought that this was a perfect opportunity to get the computer, and I talked to JD. He said that we should come back to the school about 7:45 that night, and if the building was still open, we'll get the computer. JD didn't mention Pat was coming along, so I was really surprised when Pat showed up that night.
Then what happened?
JD and Pat showed up at the school about 7:45. I was pretty nervous, and none of us said much. Pat and I picked up the computer and went outside with it. JD was closing the door when the teacher appeared. I didn't realize anybody saying anything except the teacher ordering us to the office where the police were called.
What happened while you were waiting for the police?
Pat was crying like a baby. Pat and JD got into an argument, but I didn't really hear what they were saying. I figured that now Pat was sad because he wasn't going to get the trip money and might go to jail. If JD say now that Pat wasn't in it, it's only because JD is trying to protect his little sibling.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
Sustained. That last comment will be stricken from the record, and the jury will be instructed to ignore it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Defense counsel, do you want to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Jamie, turning your attention back to the decision on August 14th, you testified that Pat was unusually quiet, didn't you?
Yes, that's true.
So it's possible that Pat wasn't paying any attention to your conversation with JD.
Well, I guess it's possible.
And were you surprised that Pat was there at Mountaintop High School on September 15th, weren't you?
Yes.
That was because Pat was not included in the plan to take the computer, was she?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the prosecution rests.
Defense counsel, do you wish to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense would like to call the defendant Pat Morton to stand.
Would Pat Morton come forward and be sworn?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I did.
You may be seated.
Please tell the court your name.
My name is Pat Morton.
Where do you go to school?
I'm a ninth grader at Village Secondary School.
What kind of student are you?
I have gotten straight A's every year, and I'm top of my class.
Please tell the court about the events of September 15th.
I admit that I was there at the school on September the 15th, but I really thought that we was borrowing the computer, and the computer teacher said it was okay.
Please tell the court more about that.
Well, my sibling JD is a senior at Mountain Top High School. He took the computer class in his junior year. JD knew that the school was getting new computers that he wanted to learn how to use. I heard Jamie mention say